Once upon a time, we enter into a world of tales from beyond. Tales perhaps at once familiar and yet strange, beyond the point of recognition.
Hello everyone, it is me, Sasha Kawaii Cat, and in today's video, I'll be drawing the characters from Dimension 20's Neverafter. Dimension 20 is College Humor's ttrpg show, and Neverafter is their 15th season set in the Neverafter. This is their first horror season, though, to be honest, it's still mostly comedic in my opinion, but there's definitely some horror elements here and there. For this season, our players are classic fairy tale characters, but with a darker element that was actually part of most of their original stories. I haven't read most of the original stories, but I am aware of the fact that they are actually a lot more scary and darker than the sort of Disney-fied versions that we are all familiar with. I'm a huge fan of Dimension 20, and I feel like I want to do more fan art for all of their upcoming seasons. I've already done fan art for their previous season. Feel free to watch that video as well if you haven't already. With all that said, let's get started. The first characters I decided to draw are Prince Gerard from The Story of the Frog Prince, played by Brian Murphy, and Princess Rosamond Dupree from The Story of Sleeping Beauty, played by Siobhan Thompson. We're first introduced to the Princess Rosamond, or Sleeping Beauty, waking up in her tower covered in thorns. This is probably the grossest scene in the show, to be honest. I'll spare you the gory details, but she manages to escape the horrors of the tower and the plants that were determined to keep her trapped, whether she liked it or not, and sets off on her journey. I'm sure most of you are probably more familiar with the Disney version of Sleeping Beauty, and so am I. I've never actually read the original story, and I truly have no desire to, but I imagine that since this is the horror season, they're drawing inspiration for her character and her story from the original story. At least that's what I assume. Rosamond seems like your typical classic princess. She starts out very naive but kind, while still very much wanting to fall in love and meet her prince, even in a world where it seems like she doesn't have that much agency, as if her story is being written by someone else. As for Gerard, we're introduced to him as our frog prince, whose marriage to his wife, Princess Elodie, has slowly begun to fall apart as he realizes that she might not love him anymore. This is a version of our prince after Happily Ever After, when he's married and he's no longer a frog but the world's second most handsome prince. However, as a result of Elodie falling out of love with him, he has slowly begun to turn back into a frog. So now he's just sort of a frog man. Gerard is described by Murph, the guy who plays him, as sort of an indoors guy. He seems to have lived a very comfortable life, at least while being a prince, and at the beginning of the campaign, it's very obvious why Elodie no longer loves him. Their kingdom is literally being attacked, and he's more comfortable hiding in their castle rather than helping her fight. This is a version of the prince whose story I think is more tied to the original story rather than the most popular version of the character. Ironically, he does kind of remind me of Prince Naveen from The Princess and the Frog. They have the same irresponsible rich boy energy that I really like. So my first impressions of these characters. I like Rosamond as a character. Her design I think is pretty decent. It's interesting seeing the character sort of be mixed with the classic princess mannerism and then just a bit of horror at times. I feel like they could have pushed the horror elements a bit further though. I like that she can speak to animals, and I love if in the Times of Shadows, which is all the animals were just creepy and fucked up. We got a taste of that in an episode where Siobhan rolled pretty low and called just a weird looking ostrich, which was a funny scene, but it's also genuinely creepy to call for like a sweet little bird and instead get an ugly talking ostrich. Honestly, even though this is the horror season, it's not really that horrific. At the end of the day, Dimension 20 is still a comedy series. I also like Gerard a lot. He's one of my favorite characters from this season. I was kind of surprised that he actually seems to love his wife, but it makes sense that he does love her, but he just wasn't aware of the fact that she's fallen out of love with him because he's just not a good husband to her. He should have been paying more attention. I'm actually very invested in their romance, like I want things to work out for them in the end. For the drawing process, I tried to stick close to the original designs while also trying to make it match my style. So the color themes are relatively similar for the most part. I really like Gerard's design. For Rosamond, I gave her a pink dress because I thought it would stand out more. Initially, her hair was going to be more blonde, like a much lighter color, but I thought giving her a more sort of strawberry blonde look would work better with her dress. I made the bottom of her dress torn since she's been wandering around in the woods for a bit. I think that's how they described it as well. I could have added some more dirt and cuts to her, but I still wanted her to have a very sort of pristine look. I'm not really leaning too much into the horror elements of the doll, to be honest. For Gerard, I added hearts to his sleeve, which I think works for his whole character, but initially I actually wanted Rosamond to have the hearts, but I wasn't sure where to put them. Either way, I'm very happy with how this first drawing turned out. I really like how Gerard and Rosamond looks. Please comment below and tell me what you think. The second characters I decided to draw are Ilfa, the Little Red Riding Hood, played by Emily Axford, and Mother Timothy Goose, played by Allie Beardsley. In Ilfa's story, she comes home from visiting her grandma, but her family is afraid of her because they think she's a wolf, which, I mean, she is. She's basically a werewolf. Long story short, her family tries to kill her and she becomes angry and blows them away. Later on, she meets up with Timothy, who basically becomes her guardian at that point, though she does look after him as well. Timothy, who is often referred to as Mother Goose, is basically a witch and was like the caretaker in his village, so it makes sense that he would look out for her in the times of shadows. Timothy is a very kind character. He's described as being bumbling, but you can tell he's very kind and very well-meaning. He and his husband Henry have a son named Jack, who is an obvious mess, but Timothy describes him as being a very sweet boy. When Jack is killed, Tim is willing to do whatever it takes to get his son back. So, first impressions. I think that Timothy and Ilfa are very fun and likable characters. The season is almost over, and so far, I really like the direction that their characters are going in. There are a few really good moments in the series, but I don't want to spoil anything. As for the drawing process, similar to the previous drawing, I tried to stick close to the original designs while also trying to make it match my own style. Again, the color schemes are relatively similar for the most part. I pretty much just eyeballed the colors for all these drawings. Both Tim and Ilfa have really good designs. I particularly like Ilfa's whole werewolf look. Again, these characters could have looked a bit more messy and scratched up, but I ended up just keeping them looking relatively clean. I also gave Tim glasses though. I don't think he actually has those. I did look up some references of Little Red Riding Hood, but for the most part, I tried to just do my own thing. For Tim, I forgot to sharpen his broom, but it's fine. Like in the story, it's described that he has a sharpened broom as a weapon, but I totally forgot about it. Overall, I really like how the drawing turned out. Please comment below and let me know what you think. Last but certainly not least, we have Puss in Boots, also known as Pib, and our wooden puppet marionette, Pinocchio. Pib is described as a cat of indeterminate age who walks on his back paws and uses his front paws like hands. Rather than being anthropomorphized, his body is like a normal cat, so when he stands up, you can see his long cat tummy. The hard times he's experienced has left like marks on him. He's thinner than he used to be, with visible ribs. It's so creepy. I love cats, but the idea of just a regular ass cat just walking around is so weird. Pib is sort of a trickster character. His whole deal is tricking an entire kingdom into thinking some miller's son named Thomas is actually a prince and living it up in the castle until everything goes to shit when giants attack. Basically, he conned his way into a pretty comfortable life, and then the times of shadows came and messed everything up. I really like this character. Zach Oyama is kind of known for playing lovable himbos, but there's something fun about him playing a sneaky little character. This character is definitely more witty and intelligent, which really balances out the party, I think, because it's kind of chaotic. He's also kind of chaotic actually, but he's a bit more sensible, which I like. Next, we have Pinocchio, who is described as a small, stringless marionette of a young boy, clad in a tiny orange shirt, green shorts, and a little hat. His eyes and mouth are painted on. Oddly, where a wooden nose once may have been, there is only a splintered hole. Because he snapped his own nose off. Yeah. Pinocchio is probably my favorite character, to be honest. I know I said it was Gerard, but I think it's actually Pinocchio. I just find him so fascinating. He's been through so much. Within the story, he has a stepmother who kidnapped his father and basically used that to control him. She's truly an evil character and very much mistreats Pinocchio. Like, so many times I forget that Pinocchio is a child because he does swear a lot and he does behave like an adult in some ways, but he is a child, and within the story of Neverafter, he's really been through a lot. Overall, he is also just very funny since Lou Wilson, the guy who plays him, is just a really funny and charismatic guy, but there is definitely an element of sadness to the character. Like, at this point, I just want him to be happy. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but a lot happens within Pinocchio's story and with his character. He and Pib are really also just a really good pair. They're really just out here conning people, lying about being royalty, very much being the most mischievous little guys, and I love every second of it. As for my drawing process for Pib's design, I anthropomorphized the hell out of him because I wanted him to match my style, and the real Pib is low-key creepy as hell to me. I actually purchased the art book for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish recently since I really loved the movie, so I used it as reference for some elements of his design. I gave him belts and a nice little cape. For a second, I played around with giving him a big hat, but I realized that would make him look too much like DreamWorks Puss in Boots, and I didn't want him to look like his own separate character. Overall, he looks fine. His ear being bitten off just hurts my soul, but I drew it anyway. For Pinocchio's design, I tried to stick very closely to the original art because I really like it. I also used the mini as reference for his bottom half since it isn't really shown in the original art. I also pulled up some references from Disney's Pinocchio, but mostly just stuck to the actual design. I think they both turned out pretty good. I'm happy with the finished artwork. Please comment below and let me know what you think. What do you think of this drawing? So those are all the characters. I hope you like how they all turned out. If you're interested in watching the first episode of Neverafter, it is available for free on Dimension 20's YouTube channel. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like my art and you like to show your support, you can always donate to my Ko-fi account or become a patron. The link to that is always in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!